different teachers, you know, to get all the foreign language teachers together. We have, for the most part, with the STEAM coordinators, that's mostly science teachers, so, and technology people, so that's been a kind of good common theme between them.
And so, as I mentioned earlier, so I'll talk briefly about this, is technology integration. That's really the reason I started with these schools. About 5-6 years ago, our schools realized that they were buying all kinds of technology, like smartboards, and nobody knew how to use them. Go figure, right? They were great video display monitors. You could watch a movie on them for some, you know, that was kind of the going thing with them. And so they thought that a common thread would be to have someone come into their schools and help with technology integration, where that's kind of where I came from. Another thing that kind of pushes forward is schools were starting to move into the one-to-one device realm of things, whether it was laptops or iPads came on the scene around then too, tablets of all kinds of shapes and sizes, and now Chromebooks. Anyone have Chromebooks in here? And so I was kind of brought on with not much direction. Here's 16 schools, 700 teachers, figure this thing out. And I said, okay, we'll see if I can figure that out. And so it started with summer workshops. That's where EDCO, or Biznet at the time, had done some things before, but they would just bring in outside speakers to teach how to do Microsoft Word and things like that. And so I started with that, and then moved into going into schools and visiting them and meeting with teachers. And that works out okay, but if you can imagine going to 16 schools and trying to do this equally, and they're spread out over, what did I say, about 50 miles.
Right.
I put a lot of miles on my car, but it's okay. It started to work out. People would sign up. I'd help them within their classroom. Since I was a certified teacher, I can and still push into the classrooms, model, work with them, all kinds of great things. This year I tried a little bit of a different model where I'm doing more after-school workshops, 1-hour type things, based on a survey that I sent out to them. So I was looking for what they needed and wanted, and so I'm trying to design things around them, but I still do school visits. The most success I actually had, but it's a very difficult thing to do, is a mentoring program. You know, really working with a particular group of teachers throughout the year, and setting goals and moving towards that. But if you can imagine, with 700 teachers in 16 schools, it's kind of a hard thing to pull off. But I did have at least some success stories out of that, which was really good. So that's kind of where I'm at, and it's kind of led me to doing other things. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about just one of the other challenges you have is that these schools are all different planes in terms of technology.
Yeah, exactly. So some of our schools started off with a lot of technology, really strong internet infrastructure, whatnot, a lot of devices, and some had one router in a room somewhere that 4 people could connect to, and so it's kind of hard to go from one zone to another, and then when you have a lot of teachers that see things that they want to do that they can't do, it's just impossible for them to do it with the equipment that they have and the technology that they have. So I try to help them find ways around it. And what we'll talk about later, the STEAM grant is kind of to try to level that playing field a little bit, or at least bring some of those schools up to a level where everyone can do the things that they would like to do with technology.
All right, so I'll talk about equity and inclusion. There are 2 major initiatives that I'm working on. One is increasing faculty of color in our schools. Our schools are primarily white, and the students are not. So the student populations are increasing when it comes to students of color, and there needs to be some representation within the faculty that are working with our students. So ways that we've kind of tried to tackle this, because our schools are kind of looking for us for help to kind of like help streamline some of this, is we go to recruitment events. We've also created on our page where they can post positions, and also build a kind of like a resume pool. So people that would be interested in looking for positions within our schools. We contacted our local graduate schools of education and just said, hey, here's a place where if you have students that are getting ready to graduate. Also the career services within the colleges, giving that information to them, so then they don't have to pay for what we have in New York State is called WINRIC, where you have to pay like a lot of money. I think it was about thousands of dollars per year for schools to just be able to post positions. Well, our schools don't they don't have that kind of money to just be posting positions, and it wasn't really lucrative, so they're not even really getting, viable candidates. So here is something that we can do for them that's free, and so that's one way that we're not just increasing, an effort to increase faculty of color, but just having candidates, period, that, yeah.
Yeah, I think we're finding, this is a pretty tight teacher market. It is in Buffalo, I'm sure it is here too. You know, there are some retirements taking place, but you have schools then cutting back their budgets and maybe not filling those positions. What we're trying to do is just create enough pool of candidates to have schools really look at a faculty member of color before they, you know, wrap up their search, and try and suggest, perhaps we've met this candidate ourselves, we know what they're capable of doing and so on. And the more we feel we could do that through Monica's efforts, the more enriched our schools will be.
So moving on to kind of like how am I engaging with these topics that can be sensitive, right? With people that don't know me, and then how do I kind of build relationships? So I'm gonna just talk about that. The first thing that I did was, I'm like, you can't go in and just tell people that you have issues of equity and diversity within your schools. You can't do that. That will close many doors in your faces. So what we did was I created a diversity survey that was for teachers to take. So about 300 of our teachers took the survey, right? So it's just, we don't know who took it, you know, so it's anonymous. The only thing I really know is what school they came from, right? And they kind of answered questions that were about perception. So is there perceptions that they have about students and their participation? Is it that I see it, I just don't know what to do? So is it they just need kind of support when it comes to different pedagogies, right? Or is it that there are other misconceptions within the schools? Like, where is it coming from? And then how can I be a support to them? When we had the results from that survey, it was very eye-opening for our school heads, you know, so just showing them this is kind of what your teachers are saying that they would like more support in. And then there are spaces where they can add comments, you know, like we would really like support, but we don't want any one and done professional development. That was just kind of like, they were screaming this. That's fine, we'll do this, we'll be all in, but I'm telling you what we're not gonna do. We're not gonna do, we just do this one workshop and everybody goes home. From that, I also had conversations with some teachers that kind of, you know, expressed that again, and they were interested in, they said, we don't want this diversity 101. We want it to be where we're talking about the real issues. We don't want, it just needs to be real. And then I need to be able to connect to my classroom. So then what, you know, just thinking about, okay, what can I do with that? I came up with the idea of having critical coffee talks. And what we do is I select a piece of literature, because I found it's best to have these conversations when people are somewhat on the same playing field. So we all read the same piece, right? We read a piece of literature, and then we come and we talk about it. And then there are some guided questions or some group activities that we're kind of picking apart the piece, right? So the first piece we did was by Ladson Billings. It was the construction of the Black woman, and then how does that play out in education, and then how does that play out when it comes to our young Black females? Because there's some misconceptions when it comes to their behavior. You know, they say, oh, they're just angry, or you know, they're just, you know, explosive. You know, how do we unpack that and then reveal some of our own biases that we have? And then what are we going to do when we have this young lady? So it's not that I'm the holder of knowledge. It's this group of people that are willing to come together and they have these conversations. So from that, I've also extended invitations to pretty much any educator. So it could be a school heads have attended. It could be counselors. It could be whoever wants to come in and attend these coffee talks. They can. We have outside people. So there are teachers from Teach for America. We have Buffalo Public School teachers that attend. We have people from the Community Action Organization that attend. So pretty much I sent this invitation out to whoever is interested, and I was surprised by how many people signed up from just a diverse perspective. It was just amazing. People are looking to have these conversations if you create the space.
Do you record them, or do you have a website?
No, I have not recorded them. It's probably something I need to, and we need to explore that further, because people are signing up for these things and they're really interested, and if they do miss it, right, if they do miss it, they want to still have access to the conversation. Something else that has come out of it is people are saying, hey, you know what would be a good resource or something that I use? So then what we do is at the end of these coffee talks, I kind of like summarize and say, hey, here's the next one. Here are resources that people have mentioned. So now they're empowered because you're actually listening to what they're saying. They're able to share their resources. And what I found is by just having coffee with people, people are reaching out to me, hey Monica, can you come and look at this curriculum? You know, I'm kind of struggling. Or we're getting ready to do this Black History Month program and we just don't know what we should be doing. Or we don't know, we want the community to come, how do you get the community to come? That's a great question, I would love to help you with that. Here are some key places you want to put that information. Have you ever written a press release? Like how do you, so teachers are looking to do this stuff to connect their classrooms to the community, and that's where I can kind of broker, you know, my relationship with them, and it's just been amazing. Does anybody have any questions about the coffee talks themselves?
And how many people go to this level?
Right, so that's a good question. When the first one I did, it was kind of like in a workshop setting. I always try to ground what I'm doing in literature, and I have either some type of video that goes along, so people are kind of, they're able to access the conversation.
Yep.
That's not fair to do to students, and it's not fair to do to educators either. So if they can't access the material, and now I'm talking at them, they're feeling disempowered, and then they can't participate. So that's not the setting that I would ever want to create. So it's either a short piece, so in that workshop that I'm referring to, I kind of like broke the ground. It was maybe 4 pages long. So you provide time within that setting. I put on some jazz music and just said, here's your piece. You know, here, take time to silently read, mark things that you found interesting to you, and then they enter into the conversation. So that one had about 15. When I had the first big one, there were 23 people. And I was like, this is huge. Wasn't ready for that. You know, I'm thinking it's gonna be like 5. You know, I'm like 5 is a good number for this kind of conversation. And then the following one had like 10, because it was a little further out. And then the next one, I'm not sure how many people have signed up. So I started back in the beginning of November. So this is like huge to be able to make this impact in such a short period of time.
What do we have, 4 more scheduled?
Yeah.
Do you ever do them around affinity groups? I find it hard to find other white male heads of school that will talk race with me.
That was one of the things that we weren't totally sure if we want. I know you're talking about things.
We already did.
Okay. Well, the coffee talks have not officially like become an affinity group, but what I'm finding is people that have attended the first one, they're like repeating. So it's like we're kind of becoming this affinity group, which.
Well, but perfect example, when we had the school heads meeting together to describe how we were gonna launch these critical coffees, one of the school heads said, hey, you know, this would be great for the school heads. We ought to do this, it's really important, and nobody picked up on it. It's like deafening in the room. So I think, you know, that's one of our real challenges, is to get the school heads to hear some of these discussions and really begin to understand what's involved.
I think in St. Louis, they're now coming for them, so I ask them, okay, they know what I'm talking about.
We've had 2 heads attend our coffee talk. There's been a lot of administrators that are interested, but one of the things that we've done in our meetings, where we have all the school heads there, is we showed some of this diversity data and comments from teachers, and I think that was really eye-opening.
That helped a lot.
Where they're, oh, we really need to start having these conversations, because our teachers are saying we need to have these conversations because they don't know what to do. So that helped.
This worries me sometimes when the gatekeepers have access to it, but the person in charge, so like I'm a head of school in St. Louis, like the person in charge won't engage in the conversation, that is stymieing to the work.
Right.
I'm sorry, you probably know this.
Yeah, and it's
So
like,
sorry.
that is one of the concerns, is who's your point of entry, who's your person of contact? You have to kind of identify, my person of contact is not necessarily Eric's person of contact, so who's kind of the person that you need to be interacting with at the school? It may be a teacher, it may be a school head, it may be a principal, yeah.
So I'm just making a connection and I have a question. So here at HB, I work with Camille Sills and we're in the Center for Multicultural Affairs here, so I'm the middle school diversity liaison. I thought it was funny because you said you have critical coffees, we have diversities, right? So I thought that was really cool. But how do you connect within the school? So like, I know here we have a liaison group, and so the structure is set up so that there's one person in every division, so we can meet divisional needs, and we sort of know like what the students can understand, what the teachers need specific to what they teach. But like, who's that person that you talk to within the school, and like, do you have someone that you can like bounce those ideas off of?
Right.
Because I know holding those conversations are difficult, and sometimes you need to like make sure it feels okay with someone who gets it before you can like kick it
So
out there.
that's what's, I think one of the most challenging, parts of my, job at this point is who is a person I need to be having these conversations with. I don't want to be the person that you're calling when there's, an issue, you know, so there have been times where I'm coming in, I'm having these conversations about race, or, hey, Monica, this is something that happened, and I would just like to talk to you. That's kind of one of the issues that I need to kind of figure out, well, what does that look like? So one of the ways that I'm doing it is having all staff kind of professional developments, but that's coordinated through either the heads of school or whoever's in charge of the professional development. So it is identifying that gatekeeper that will allow you entry. So I haven't figured that out yet, but that's a good question.
And do you have a diversity affinity group for the schools?
Not yet.
Not yet.
It's very new for what we're doing, but that, kind of speaking to a lot of your questions, the affinity groups are comprised mainly of teachers, and so I don't want to say it's the way around the head of school, but you can have those conversations with the